And good morning and welcome to Brand Awareness. Consistency is critical. Our guest speaker today is Pat Garcia with Design Explorer. And with that, we're going to just jump into it. I'm going to turn it over to Pat. Thanks.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. I was talking to Amira earlier about how everyone has a plethora of choices these days for webinars and things to attend. So I appreciate you choosing to join us for this one today. All right, give me just a moment. I'm going to start sharing my screen and get it going. Okay, can everybody see my first slide there? Brand awareness, consistency is critical. All right, I saw a thumbs up from Michelle. Thank you. All right, great. Okay, good morning, folks. I am Pat Garcia with Design Explorer, and I design compelling business experiences by creating an authentic brand experience, brand identity for you that takes your customer on a illuminating journey by telling them your authentic story. So that's what I do, and I'm a designer. I do graphic design, web design, specialize in brand strategy. So that's why I'm here today to talk to you about brand awareness and the very most important part of branding, which is consistency. So regardless of what type of business you have, whether it's a for-profit, non-for-profit, large company, small company, privately owned, IPO, products, services, whatever you're doing, you're going to benefit from determining your brand identity and your brand strategy. Just knowing the pain points are that your pain points are probably related to a need to properly communicate to your business clients, your brand, and to make more sales. I mean, that's what we're all looking for, right? Is more business, better business. So that's what a consistent brand can help you do. Here's some examples of some very successful brands that I'm sure we all know of these days. Originally, a brand was just this physical, visceral, distinctive symbol. It's, you know, we all think of a brand in different ways, but originally a brand was that mark. And it used to be used to put a mark on livestock so that owners can mark their herd and keep other cattle rustlers from being able to steal their livestock because it had this brand on it. So we're kind of doing that. It's just not quite the same physical thing anymore, but it's not burned into our products, but the goal is the same. It's the image that's projected to the marketplace, to the target audience. That's your logo. And it's not just a logo, though. Again, branding is a big thing, and it's not just your logo. It includes everything to do with your company. But your logo, your brand, is what distinguishes you from other companies possibly in the same realm of business, the same industry. So, and it's also kind of become a brand, an umbrella term that represents and the entire business, the whole brand, your promises, your expectations between the company and your audience, and the relationship between yourself and your customers. So there's all kinds of big meanings behind the brand. So, but we're going to try to narrow that down and narrow how you're going to use that. Right here are some examples of some really great what are called logo types. These are logos that include the name of the business in them. So we all know, you know, Coca-Cola, Aflac, Amazon, Google, for instance, are very famous names, and their logos, you see them right away, you know who they are, you can read the name in them, but you also, you know, see the identity. And you see that identity, that logo matches who they are and what they do. So on this next slide, I'm going to show some more very strongly implemented brands, but this time I'm going to test you. So here's one of those times when I need you to unmute and chime in on it. So just to kind of demonstrate how well some brands, what a great job some brands have done of getting their brand out there, their name out there, and their message out there in such a great way that everybody knows who they are. They become kind of household names. And as soon as you see their symbol, their brand, their logo, you know who they are. So I'm going to test you all really quickly here. And they're going to start coming up just one after another, and just shout out the names of the companies as they come up. And I want to hear you. So unmute. I don't see people unmuting. Come on, let's get those mutes off. I want to hear some guesses as these are popping up. Here we go.
Apple,
Cookies,
Starbucks,
Shell,
Shell,
Nike, MasterCard,
what?
Rolling Stones,
Pepsi,
Pepsi.
McDonald's.
Oh, is that Tiffany's?
Okay. I know it's early. We're not quite ready for this yet. It's okay. So that's pretty good. Hey, you guys did really well. So just again, just to show you what, what great brands these are and what a great job that they've done of branding, that you just know who they are. I think most of you knew all of these, and some of you, knew most of these anyway. Up in the far right corner is the MasterCard. And, I don't know if some of you may recall that they used to have, as part of their logo, the name across there. It used to be MasterCard in white across those circles. They have gotten so bold as to just remove that name altogether, because they know that everybody recognizes that symbol. And what is it? It's just two circles overlapping each other, a red and orange circle overlapping. And that's it. It's as simple as you can get, yet we all know it. We all know that's MasterCard because we've seen it. They've placed it well. They've branded themselves well. And just, for instance, bottom right is the Tiffany's box. That's not even a logo. It's just a packaging, but everybody recognizes that Tiffany's packaging. And in case you didn't already know this, that color has actually been trademarked. Tiffany's has trademarked it. It's Tiffany blue. So technically other companies can't use that color. And it's so recognizable that people know that right away. The bottom left is that Rolling Stones. I heard someone say Rolling Stones. You got it then. That's not even a business. It's a band. Well, kind of is a business too, or was. But anyway, you recognize that. You see that and go, oh, that's the Rolling Stones. And then upper left, I don't know if anyone got that, but that's Twitter. I didn't hear anybody say Twitter, but the Twitter symbol. And, they have boiled it down. They have gone through some branding changes, and they boiled it down to this little simple symbol of this little bird. And it's a very distinctive looking little bird, but it's very simple. So just an idea of how, how we can make an impression out there in the world, and how, you want to be able to know that and see that consistently throughout all of your branding and marketing. So the steps to brand consistency are, first of all, you've really got to just have a brand strategy. It's a plan to achieve the evolution of a successful brand by applying your long-term goals and to sticking to that brand identity over time. And, you can't go around it. You can only go through it. I know a lot of your folks are saying, well, I already have this, and I already, got a logo. I've already got this. Well, that's great if you do, but I really strongly suggest that you go back and kind of go through these steps again, just at least to review what you've got going, because you can't go through around these steps. You can only go through them in order to build a foundation for your brand. And that's going to be the key to your consistency, is that foundation. Assuming that your products and services are already solid, or at least most of them, with some future growth in mind, then you can get started on this branding consistency. So I've kind of boiled it down to 4 major steps. So first of all, you're going to need to determine your market niche. So where do you belong in your market? What exactly are you selling? And we're going to go into this more. And then defining your brand identity. Who are you? What do you stand for? Develop your visual imagery. That's your logo. That's also all your graphic elements that support it, and everything that keeps you looking consistent visually. And then delivering your message. Again, a consistent, very appropriate, authentic message for yourself. So starting with that first step, determining your market niche. So understanding your place in the field is very critical. Right away, where are you in your industry? What do you have to offer within that industry? What makes you unique? What is your unique selling point? How are you different from your competitors? And then what problem are you solving for them? Your journey includes a determination of what need you are fulfilling. What are the pain points that your clients are feeling? This is all going to contribute to your consistency in branding. I know it looks like, you know, we're just doing a class in identity right now, but it all contributes to your consistency in branding down the road. I put a little imagery in there for you of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's kind of the blueprint for what's important to us as human beings and what's the most important. And you'll see at the bottom of that pyramid are the physiological, the primary survival needs that we have in order to live. And then at the top are your self-actualization, just things that make us feel good about ourselves, needs, and everything in between. So you've got to ask yourself, what level am I on with my products or services, and what am I meeting? What needs am I meeting? So here's where I'm going to ask somebody to unmute and tell me, where do you think that your product or service lies on this pyramid and why? Anybody want to volunteer that?
I'll go.
Okay, great.
I'm Michelle, and I'm a transformational life coach, and I also am a master practitioner in mental and emotional release. And in the personal growth field, that would probably be under self-actualization. However, for some of the work that I do and help clients with, as far as the mental and emotional release of baggage, negative emotions, etc., that would also fit in the love, being loved, lovable, and esteem, that I'm worthy and important.
Exactly. Well, and thank you, Michelle. And that's exactly, you did exactly what I was hoping you'd do. And is to find yourself moving down that pyramid. The more you think about what you're offering, you'll find that, you know, hey, I actually do help with this level, and then this level, and then moving down, you know, you might even find yourself down into the physiological level at the very bottom, and find that you're actually helping people to find food and shelter and safety, you know, and with some of the services that you have. So the idea is that you then let people know that that's what you're doing for them, that you share that in your messaging, that we're really helping you with your basic needs and solving your basic problems. So thank you. Okay.
I'm Emily. I run Buckley Gardens LLC, and I go ahead and help people design and maintain gardens at their homes.
Okay.
So I think I could probably claim that I'm helping people with their homes and their shelter and their food, because I do also design vegetable and fruit gardens.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out how that'll fit into my brand, but it's nice to think, oh, my dream business, my business is at the very base.
Right. That's good. That's good. So keep that in mind. And while you're working on your messaging, you know, how to address that in your messaging and how to address that in your whole identity, visually as well as verbally. And then take that through to your consistent strategy. Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
I'm Evie. Let's see here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
And I'm a nursing consultant.
Okay.
I actually am a certified legal nurse consultant. So I work with lawyers in interpreting the electronic medical record. And ultimately, I would say I'm trying to figure out where I would fit on this pyramid. The bottom line is that I'm presenting information that helps solve legal cases for those people that have been injured.
Well, I could see where you would fit at least at the safety level.
Right, and maybe even the physiological,
And maybe,
because also, yeah, I help determine care plans for people that have long-term physical health needs.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you're helping them.
And the other big piece that I do is I do a lot of education to the attorneys that are, first of all, they don't know how to interpret the medical record. And secondly, they're not sure what a lot of the information in that medical record means.
Okay.
So I'm working probably toward two groups of people. I'm working toward
Okay. You've got
the
a couple
attorney
different,
level, and then I'm working toward the individual person who's been injured.
right. So you have a couple of different target markets, it sounds like, that have different
Right.
needs and different
Right.
pain. So yeah, so you probably need to keep that in mind and look at this diagram and see, where each of them fits and what level you're meeting them at. And then again, use that in your messaging for each group. It sounds like you're going to need, a couple of different targeted messages for those groups. So it's good. All right. Anybody else?
Sure.
I have a question. I was actually thinking maybe we could do this at the end where we could exchange information. Is that a possibility if there's time?
I'll leave that to Amira. If there is time at the end, then we might be able to pop up and share information. But for now, you can share your information in the chat if you just want to put your name and contact information and basic business
Put
information.
it in the chat.
Yeah, put that in the chat. Great. Anybody else?
Go ahead.
My name is Jen. I'm a nurse practitioner, and I do advocacy, patient advocacy, and basically teaching them how to advocate for themselves. So I'm trying to kind of figure out, just because I think a lot of patients have an issue. I have a history as a patient and as a nurse practitioner, so kind of coming from both sides, and the experience of not having, of learning what it means not to have advocated and fighting to advocate for myself. And so I kind of learning that process. And so teaching patients how to, rather than advocating for them, though I do that if they need it, really teaching them how to be their own advocates so that if they don't have someone there. So I'm kind of trying to figure out, I think it's a safety issue, but really helping them become confident enough.
Right. Well, I think that, I think you're covering everything from safety up, sounds like, because you're addressing their love, their belonging, and then probably their esteem and self-actualization is rolled up into all of that as well. So yeah, so those are all points that need to come into your messaging, and start with that basic level of safety, in terms of what you're going to put emphasis on, because the deeper you go into people's needs, the more you grab them, the more you interest them, because they're like, oh, I really need this, So
Right.
that's good.
Okay. All right.
Great. Well, thank you, Jen. Okay, Tom, I think you had something to offer.
Sorry, I muted myself again. Yeah, we're a med spa, so we obviously work at a self-actualization level, but esteem is a big part of it because we do medical aesthetics. Love and belonging would clearly be part of what we do because of our weight loss and even hormone balancing and stuff. And that would go down to some level on safety, and then even physiological,
Right.
kind of with weight and stuff. There's some elements of that. So we crossed probably all dimensions.
Mhm. Well, and you also have food products, correct?
That is correct.
So you are hitting that physiological need there. You're actually providing some food. So that's part of the food and shelter piece. So there you go. Great. Well, thank you everybody for participating in that. And I'll just keep going here. Get back over here. There we go. Okay, competition. And we all have competition. When you're crafting your identity, you just have to know who you're dealing with out there in the industry. Who are they? What do they do? What do they look like? Do you want to look like them? Do you want to look different? How do they market their business? Again, what do you like about how they're doing that? What do you not like? What do you see as working or not working for them? What is their unique selling point, their USP versus yours? How can you two coexist in the same marketplace, but both thrive? So you don't want to, squash your your enemy or your competitor as an enemy, but coexist with them and find your own way to live in that space. And so what is that? But you have to understand them to know that, what do you like? What don't you like? So to be or not to be like them is the question. And then how to be different. So that's something to keep in mind. And your target market, of course, is very, very important. Lots of folks jump in here, but you need to have that foundation before you get to this point, as far as, knowing where you belong in your industry, what you provide, who you are, what you're going to promise, what your value is. You really understand that before you delve into your target market, because then you know what you've got and who's going to want it, right? So who is that target market? There's a lot of research at this point that needs to happen to really understand who that is. You cannot be all things to all people, so you really have to narrow that down. Who is it out there in the world that you can make a hero of your story? We talk, I'm sure you've all heard about story branding and telling your story and branding, which is very important. But what sometimes people get caught up in is telling their own story about their own business, which is part of it, yes. But the main story that you're telling is how you are going to help your customer. They need to be the hero in your story. So how are you making them a hero in their lives? What service or product are you providing that makes them a hero, in their own life or to the people in their lives and to their situation? And you promise them that, then, they'll follow you anywhere. So what is that promise? So figure out what that is, research and put together what's called a persona for your target market. And you need at least one, maybe more, depending on how wide your market is, that tells you, this is the person that I am targeting for. They're, this age range, this income level, this household type. They have, this kind of personality, these kind of buying traits. They use these kinds of channels, etc. You really narrow it down to that specific person. And I know what some of you are saying was, I don't really want to narrow, because what if I miss people? I need to cast a wide net so I catch everybody. But the problem is, when you cast a really wide net, then you get the, literally unwanted fish. What you want is that whale, right? The big one. So you got to really narrow to who it is you would really like, who is your most ideal client, and really target for them. Now, that doesn't mean you won't get the littler fish out in the periphery. You will, but you got to narrow your target for that. It just means that your branding and your messaging is all going to be geared toward that whale, so to speak. But you'll still get the other folks. But again, there's a lot of research that goes behind that. I'm not going to talk about that today, but there is a lot of research that you need to do that. And here's kind of what it looks like when you boil down that research. This is a persona that I did for one of my clients that I created a brand identity system for, Zivio Weight Loss and Med Spa, who Tom Higgins is here with them. This is one of the personas. They ended up needing 3 personas because they have 3 tiers to their business, 3 verticals that they kind of cover. So one of them was fit this persona here. So with all the research and foundational backing, I came down to one page, I call it your persona cheat sheet, that tells you this is the person that you're looking for. Of course, it's not a real person. It's an amalgamation of all the different kinds of people. But this is it comes down to this person. It's a woman in her 60s. She has an accounting firm. She's just starting to get interested in her health. She hasn't really paid attention to it because she's been too busy working. But she's got some hobbies, and these are the kinds of brands that she likes. Her brand preferences are affluent brands, so she's an affluent target. These are the kinds of motivations she has. What does price mean to her versus quality? What kind of options does she want to look for? What are her preferred communications channels? This is very important to determine, because that's going to tell you how to reach her. And she really likes websites and print ads. So that, that's the kind of person that you're gearing toward. And then we go and hear a little bit about her story, what her scenario is, what her primary objectives are in coming to you and in her life, and the needs that you can help solve, her problems you can solve, and her pain points that you can meet. So put it all in one page. And if you have something like this to use as your guide, then everything you do, you just always refer back to this page, and go, okay, is my messaging on target to this person? Am I really talking, does my visual identity appeal to this person? You know, all those things have to go through your mind with every action you take, with every business you make for your business. Okay, so after you've understood who you are, then the next stage is defining your brand identity. Or where you belong, I should say. Now you're gonna really work on who you are. So why is brand identity so important? And it may even be a new term for some of you. Your brand identity is the message the consumer receives from your product, the person, the thing that leads to product recognition. So how do they know you? What happens that gets them to know you? So it's part of that is your logo, yes. For instance, the logo is imbued with your unique attributes that define your company and your organization. It's how you want to be perceived, how you want people to know you. It tells them your business name, your value proposition. You know, it includes your logo, your tagline, your business card, your mission statement, your products, your services, color palette, typography, style, messaging, even your dress code if you have a store that they come in to see you or that you meet with them. So all of these things rolled together are part of your brand identity. And it's so important because it's who you are and it's what you do. And it's what conveys what you do and who you are and who you're not actually also. And that's important as well too. It's your unique voice, your personality and your image, all the things. You know, even if you have the most innovative, groundbreaking product ever conceived, if you can't communicate that value to the marketplace, then your business won't go very far. And if you don't have a strong brand identity to support that wonderful product, then you won't get very far. So that's why this is very important. Let's say for instance, if you're going to launch a startup company with a focus on environmental protection, then you need to be ready to stand up for green movements and activities in your local area. You know, when it comes to branding efforts, you know, actions speak louder than words. So make sure that your actions follow, you know, what your values are. And, you know, you always have to be you in every occasion, in every touch point, be consistent with that brand identity. We're going to talk more about what that means as we get along. The main thing is that for good business, your business demonstrates a commitment to the values and promises throughout the customer journey, your values and promises. And then it can move that customer, every customer, from a brand stranger, someone who doesn't know you at all, to a brand advocate, someone who knows you and now likes you, to a brand ambassador, who is someone who loves you so much they're going to tell everybody they know about it. Share it verbally, share it through social media, etc. That's a brand ambassador, and that's what we all want. That's what we're working for. So part of the identity piece is to vet your business name. I think most of you already have a business name and you probably love your business name, but it's a good idea to kind of step back at times and reevaluate that. So just make sure that it is matching what you do, that your name really does match what you do, and that it evokes the vision that you want. You know, what do you want people to envision when they hear your name, when they see your name? You know, if you sell auto insurance, you don't want a silly name like Ape-tastic Auto Insurance. You know, nobody's going to trust that company. Or if you run a comedy club, you don't call it Serious Business. You know, your name has to really match what you do. It doesn't have to say what you do in the name, but it has to evoke the same kind of imagery and values and personality that you're looking for. So is it easy? You want a name that people can pronounce, that people can spell. It's easy to type, it's easy to read, it's easy to see on a sign, etc. So, you know, don't pick something with, you know, 50 characters in it, for one thing. Don't pick something that no one can possibly pronounce. You know, something that's understandable in your current culture and that is meaningful to your target market, right? So, and you've got to make sure that you can own it. You know, a lot of companies get excited, you know, oh, I love this name. I want this name for my company. And then you get out there and find out that that web domain is already taken. The social media handles that go with that may already be taken. So, you know, that's one thing that you have to make sure that is consistent across the board with your company. You got to make sure that all of those match, that your web domain matches to, or at least closely matches, to your social media. All your social media handles should be exactly the same. You shouldn't have a different one for Facebook versus Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever you choose. They should all be the same. You know, again, consistency, consistency. So keep that in mind. And, you know, it just, all the platforms must be able to use them. All right, so next is to tell your story. So controlling the narrative. Everyone is going to have some impression of your business based on what they see or read, but it's up to you to control that narrative. Make sure that they see what you want them to see and think what you want them to think. You're going to write a really nice mission statement, and this is where you need to do some really deep soul searching about who you are, who your company is, and come up with just one tight paragraph that describes what you do. And that might be very difficult because, well, I know it is very difficult because you do so much, right? You have so much to offer, you know, you really want to share that, and you have a long story that you want to tell. But the mission statement is not the place to do that. So where you can do that is, you know, in your marketing documentation, on your website, tell your story, tell your long story. That's perfect. But for a mission statement, it's just supposed to be short, maybe 3 or 4 sentences long, just one paragraph. You know, what are your motivations, your values, your purpose, your promise to your customers? You know, make it simple and clear so that there's no doubt what you're there for. So it ensures that everyone in your company is on the same page too. So if, you know, everybody refers back to that mission statement in your company, then everybody will be on task, and will work out. And so the next thing is the tagline. Tagline is incredibly important, and it's the shortest thing that you're going to use ever. It's got to be 6 words or less, or preferably 6 words or less. Just really boils down what you do and the meaning of who you are and what you do. And I'm going to show you some examples. So again, I'm going to ask everybody to unmute, and I want you to guess who these famous taglines belong to. And again, demonstrate how powerful these very short messages can be. So unmute yourselves, and here we go. Okay, first one, be all you can be.
U.S. Army.
Yeah, somebody got that, great. When you care enough to send the very best.
Hallmark,
Mark, isn't it?
Yeah, got that. Just do it.
Nike.
Nike.
Nike,
We know that one, sure. Breakfast of Champions.
Wheaties.
Kellogg, Wheaties,
Yeah, Wheaties, good. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Well,
State Farm,
State Farm was pretty crafty. They actually got their name into their tagline. You can do it, we can help. Home Depot. Sorry, I jumped the gun on that one. It's the real thing.
Milk. Isn't that the dairy?
No.
No, I thought that was a dairy.
Come on, folks. I can't
Um,
believe you're not guessing this one. It's
the real thing.
I would sing it, but I'm not a singer, sorry.
Is it like, it's the real thing, baby?
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is Coca-Cola. Yeah.
So yeah, so anyway, here's some examples of some that we know all or most of anyway. Right away, you hear those short few words and you know who it is. You have an image in your mind. You kind of already know what it is they do and stand for. You know, that's just been ingrained in us, and that's what you're shooting for, is a tagline that does that same thing, that same kind of thing. And then beyond this, there's something in between mission statement and tagline called an elevator speech, and I'm sure you've all had to do it. It's like a 30-second spiel, you know, blurb about who you are and what you do. So it's the reason I say it's in between the two is because it is something less formal than your mission statement in terms of language, but it's also, but it's longer than a tagline. It's probably about the same length or a little shorter than a mission statement, but it's got to last about 30 seconds. Say your name, who you're with, and then what that company does, what it promises, and what your purpose is in 30 seconds in a more informal manner, because it's what, you know, you're going to be talking to people, you know. And so those are the 3 main messages that you use to tell your story that need to be crafted. And so next we get to develop our visual imagery. You know, now that the identity crisis is over, you know who you are, you know what your messaging is, it's time to get visual. So we get to create a logo here. Again, some of you already in business have logos already. You know, take a second look at your logo. It's never a bad idea to refresh your brand. And in fact, we recommend that you refresh a brand at least every 5 years. Some companies do it more often, some less, but around 5 years is a good, a good time to take a look at your brand. You know, make sure that that logo is still something that's fresh and modern enough to the current culture, and you know, determine what everyone else is doing in your marketplace. Again, look at that industry. What do your competitors look like? What kind of logos are they using? Do you want to look like them, or do you want to look different? One of the main things is that you've got to differentiate yourself, but you don't want to be so different that people can't even tell you're in that industry. You know, you want to be associated with the industry that you're in, so you want them to understand that that's what you're doing, but you don't want to be just like everybody else. So there, you're kind of riding the line there, but you find your niche and you stick to that. So how do you want to represent your business is the main thing. And, you want to hire a professional, first of all, to design your logo. Please don't try to DIY that. I know there's some very talented folks out there, but there's so much more to not only designing, but implementing and using a logo throughout all your marketing than most people understand. So it's good to use a professional to do that. And to make sure that when they're doing that, that they're implementing, again, your personality, your identity, what you've developed to this point. Now, what is the tone that you're trying to convey? You know, do you want to be modern? Do you want to be classic? Are you aggressive, bold, playful, strong, dainty, intelligent, serious? You know, what is it the message you're trying to convey? And that's got to come through in your logo. And that's a lot to ask of a simple symbol, because we really do want it to be pretty simple, because you don't want something so difficult that people can't consume it, can't understand it. But in that simple symbol, you've got to understand what that company does. Like those examples I showed you before of the logo marks, you knew right away who some of those companies were, even though their marks were very simple. So that plays a part of it too. And there's also a lot of science behind the color psychology. There's color theory and there's color psychology. And then there's psychology behind the fonts as well. So when you're choosing those to go with your visual identity, make sure that matches what your company is all about too. We also highly recommend that your logo have no more than 3 colors. More than that, people are starting to get confused. They don't know where to look. They don't know what's the most important thing to look at, because you're giving them too much to unpack. So 3 colors or less is a good idea. Plus, if you look at the psychology, the meaning of these colors, you'll see, that each color has its own unique meaning. And so you get too many colors going there, then you're sending a confusing message. It's like saying a bunch of words at the same time. So you want to kind of keep that as simple as possible. And then make sure that you have a brand standards document or brand guidelines created. Again, a professional can do this for you, and that will set you up with all the information you need about how to use that logo and how to use that typography and how to use it throughout all of your marketing so that it will be consistent. This is going to be the glue that holds your brand together. It's going to help you protect and create and protect your firm's brand identity. And you get that again from a professional.
Pat, could I chime in real quick? I just have a question. Do you create brands? Is that part of your service?
Excuse me. Yes, I do.
Awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
that's part of my service. For sure. I'll talk a little bit more about my whole service at the end. But yes, I do create logos as part of my service. So I just wanted to show a few local brands here that I think we will mostly all recognize, and show how they've used the science of color and typography to convey their messages. I think everyone knows the Broncos logo here, right? Their colors are blue and orange, and on a color wheel, they are what's called complementary colors. So they are meant for each other, basically. They completely complement each other. And that's, a good use of color theory and science. And then typography-wise, they created their own type here that's unique to them. So you won't see this type anywhere else. So that's a very unique imagery too. And then the imagery with the horse, with the Bronco itself. I don't know if any of you guys recognize this one, the top right red box there. That's the Jefferson County Public Library. logo. I'm going to show you some more about that later, so I won't talk about it much. And there's the Denver Zoo, and they're riding the line on the number of colors here, but they do a nice job of it. And then we've got Zavia Weight Loss and Med Spa, who is a local company in Lakewood. That's a weight loss and med spa. I actually did the brand identity for this company. And they're using also some complementary colors, a deep red tone with a teal tone. Those are complementary on the color wheel. And, an image that shows kind of their personality. It's typography, and it's very unique type that you won't see in other places. The Denver Airport, International Airport logo down here on the bottom left. Very simple, one color. DEN says it all. They use their airport code, DEN, and that's it. And you got it. And that imagery, everyone knows that the visual imagery of the building out there. So it's very clean and very clear. Quiznos, I put this in here with local brands. I think most of you know this is now a national brand, but it started in Denver, Colorado. So yeah, they've come a long way, but that's a very nice mark that they've got there. So supporting graphics for your logo, for your identity is very important. That's what will cement your visual identity. So not just your logo is important, but having supporting graphics that match with that logo, that look and feel and tone of the logo is very important for consistency. And you want to use the brand standards that I mentioned earlier that tell you how to use the color palette and the typography, and then how to proliferate any visual identity that you, supporting graphics that you add. Supporting graphics are things like icons for your social media, or just little flourishes, like say you have flower shapes or lines of some sort that flow in a way that match with your logo. Any kind of supporting imagery is what you want to use, and make sure not to deviate from your brand standards and from your identity that you've set up so far. And here's something that I always like to create for my clients. It's a brand style tile. And this is one I did for Zavia. So once we created the logo and we selected a color palette and a typography, I put this all into one page, and this is our style tiles. So this kind of shows, here's what the color palette is. And you'll notice with the colors, there are 2 primary colors and 2 secondary colors. So the primary colors are what are in the logo itself. And then the secondary colors are for the supporting graphics that support these primary colors. And then I show kind of some combinations of the colors just to show how they work together. And then we have the imagery style. So this is kind of letting us know this is what we're looking for in imagery to match along with this brand. Excuse me, the imagery style, the photo style, etc. And typography, these are the fonts that we're using within and around the logo and branding. And then just some examples of what buttons might look like on the website or in other online applications. And then the logo, just real quickly, showing how it looks in color, how it looks in black, and how it looks in white, which is very important that they work in all of these instances. I'm going to show you more about that. So again, that's another kind of a cheat sheet for you. So I wanted to show you a local branding system that is an excellent system that I've found that does everything it needs to be doing. This is the Jefferson County Public Library. So they've created their mark, and standalone mark is this red block and with this white imagery over. Does anybody know what that is? Anybody want to chime in and guess what this image is of?
I think it's a book being open. You're looking at the like the front or the back of it.
Exactly. Great guess. Yes, it's a book opening up, and so those are the pages across. And this is actually, pardon me, this is actually a modernization or a refresh of their previous brand. So this isn't a whole new brand out of nowhere. They had kind of a book-looking brand that they had been using before. So they liked that idea. So they didn't completely abandon that idea. They just modernized it and refreshed it. So it just looks so much cleaner now than what they had before. And it's, a nice bold red color, that gets your attention right away. The little askew box kind of gives it an interesting angle to look at. But they still kept that imagery of the book, which of course matches their identity as a public library. And you'll see with this logo that it works in a horizontal layout. So you've got the mark next to the name horizontally, and it also works vertically with the mark with the name below it. It works well in black on white, and it works well with white on black, which is all the things that you need to make sure that your logo can do. So here are some more examples of how they used it. So here's a building, one of its buildings, and they use in kind of a brushed silver here, the name on this dark wooden building. So they're staying true to their brand. They're laying out their logo per their brand standards. And here it shows how they've used a vehicle wrap to also continue with their branding. And you'll see that there are some other colors involved there. That's because they have also created secondary and tertiary color palettes to support that initial logo brand with the purple and the reds, etc. And you see how they carry that through their website. This is an example of their homepage website layout, and it uses their logo, and it uses one of their primary colors of purple, and the typography that they've stuck to. Here's an example of how they've used it in some publications. They have a Connect magazine, and then they have a stem cell program. This is how they've advertised their stem cell program. And then this is kind of what some of their print work looks like. On the left is a poster. You'll see a lot of posters within the library. And on the right is a rack card giving information about a certain program. And you'll notice the branding is very consistent throughout those. The logo is always, using the brand standard layout, and then the secondary and tertiary colors are used in a very tasteful and consistent way. And even at their kiosk where you go to check out a book, then their screen comes out with a nice branded identity. So this is just a nice branding system, which is what we're going for. Something that covers the whole system and is consistent across every touch point for that brand. And as a famous designer once said, Paul Rand, who designed the logo for IBM and many other big companies, design is the silent ambassador of your business. So good design is always working for you and telling your story for you, and hopefully in a good professional way.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I noticed down at the bottom of that previous slide, there was a Q's and Brews, that page. There was down at the bottom of that page, there were many more colors. Yeah, down there. So
yeah, so
are those considered brand colors, or are those just, yes. It's just kind of playful stuff that they've put in?
No, you'll see in the STEM program 1-2, there are also a couple more colors that you didn't see to begin with. They have a brand palette, and the logo is just the one red, but then they have secondary colors, which are the blue and the purple, and then they have tertiary colors, which are that aqua color and the dark navy blue that's almost black. So those are all within their brand standards. It's just that you don't always see all of those colors. In some cases, they pull out, those additional colors.
Okay.
But they're complementary to the existing palette. Does that answer your question?
It does, totally. Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, the next step is to deliver your message. Now that you've got your identity, you've got your message worked out, you've got your visual identity worked out, now you tell your story. So tailoring your marketing to build your market presence. So what is market presence? That's, that depends largely on the branding work that you've done to this point. So you can't just start throwing stuff out there unless you've really done the foundational work up to this point to create that consistent, meaningful brand. And then you're going to be implementing those brand standards for your messaging and your graphics. You got to have brand standards for both of those things. And then tell your story. What is that story? We're natural storytellers, and we're wired to listen to stories that establish an emotional connection in our minds. So that's what we're trying to do, is establish that emotional connection. Excuse me. One study found that reading a story activates the same parts of your brain that come to life when you are actually experiencing the events yourself. So by telling a story, we're getting people excited as if they're actually having that experience. So that's what we want to try to do and engage that. And make sure that you're always referencing that mission statement. Again, you go back to that mission statement, you go back to that persona, you know, those are your foundational blocks that help you to make sure that everything is consistent. You know, make sure that that tone and voice that you're sticking to. You know, if you chose to be serious and assertive, stick to serious and assertive. Don't try to tell jokes. You know, stick with the tone and the identity that you've established. And, you know, just have consistent best practices based on your research. You know, select the best and most cohesive ways to share your mission and your brand experience. Back to the persona, you decided what were the best marketing channels for your target market. So, you know, if they really like social media, then you get out there on social media and then the particular channels that they respond to. If they really like print, then, you know, then you get out there and print. You know, take that story to them where they live, you know, where they look, where they're going to be, you know, and whether it's print or digital or both, you know, probably good to do both. And consistency is critical. And while you're sharing your story, you want to boil it down. And it's been proven that if you can boil your story down to 3 primary steps, you can engage people's thought process much more easily. They can usually handle more than 3 steps. So, you know, 3 easy steps. Let's say you sell cars. So step 1 is select your car. 2, we deliver your car. 3, enjoy the road. So those are your 3 big stories. Like on your website, at the top of your website, it should say 1, 2, 3, select a car. We deliver your car. Enjoy the road, and an image of you driving off in your car, you know, driving on through the mountains in your car, whatever it is. So it gets them quickly through your process and shows them this is what you start with, this is what we help you with, and this is what you're going to end up with. So try to do, you know, keep that in mind in your messaging. And then once you're getting out there, do some testing. You know, make sure that things are working for you, that you know, that you're being clear and concise, and that it works, that all your messaging works across all the platforms. You got to make sure that if you're sending stuff out online, it works on a Mac, it works on a PC, it's going to work on all the internet browsers, that the social media apps, that it's going to look good on all social media apps. You know, some of you who've already been out there in social media might have seen that, you know, in some of them, a square image is all you can do. In others, you know, a rectangular image will work. You know, it's little things like that, though, but that will bite you if you don't handle that properly. You know, if you don't want an image that gets truncated down and it isn't the image that you expected it to be, make sure it shows the way you want it to show. So those kinds of things. Implement your email and your blogs and videos, all those things. Wherever your target market lives is where you want to go with those things. And then make sure when you do print that it's going to print well across all the media. So if you're doing color, make sure the color is matching your brand standards, your color palette, and that it's going to look good in black and white if it has to be black and white. If it's a laser or an off-center printer, you know, I'm getting into the weeds a little bit here, but you know, it's the details that you got to make sure, you know, cross all those T's and dot all those I's, you know, make sure that it's going to look good in every medium. So here are some specific touch points that I'm talking about when I am talking about being consistent across all of your marketing, all your branding. Customer touch points are your brand's points of customer contact from start to finish. So anytime a potential customer or an existing customer comes in contact with your brand before, during, and after their purchase, you know, this is some opportunity for you to share your brand identity with them and to cement that. So things like your business name right off the bat, like I said to begin with, make sure you can pronounce it, make sure you can spell it, make sure you can use it, make sure it evokes the imagery that you're hoping that it does. You know, everything through what your website looks like, your online presence, making sure that the social media all looks the same. If you're going to send posts out, make sure that they're consistent across all of the different social media. And having those brand standards set up and having that imagery set up to begin with will just help you slide that right in very easily, as long as you have that all set up and make sure that it's consistent every time. And your emails, if you're going to do email, make sure that you have just in normal everyday emails, that you have a nice signature with your logo and your information and links to all your social media if you're using that. And then if you're doing email marketing, make sure that you do a very nice, clean, clear design for your emails, and that they use your branding, your colors, your typography, etc. Keep that consistent. Use your tagline wherever possible, whenever possible, to share that image with people. Make sure it looks good on your business cards. Again, it's the same. Just all of these different places are where you're going to want to make sure that that brand is presented both visually and verbally and textually consistent. And then you just want to maintain that momentum. You want to go in and make sure that things are working for you. What's working, do more of that. What's not working, set that aside, try something different, change whatever needs to change, find what your audience is responding to. There are a lot of analytical tools out there for us right now, Google Analytics and many, many more for us to get numbers and values on how, what our customer traffic is. So that's an easy way for you to figure out what's working for you. But also there's word of mouth. The best thing to do is engage with your customers, one-to-one, and just ask them, do surveys, have conversations and ask them, what did you like about your experience? What did you not like about your experience? Maybe even ask them specifically about your brand. What did you think about our brand? And did we, consistently and do a good job of presenting our brand to you? Ask those questions and then see what you need to do. And in general, the best thing to do is to simplify and clarify. Simplify and clarify that message and that visual identity. Keep things as simple as possible. Get to the point as quickly as possible, and people will appreciate that. Now we're all just barraged with information constantly, nonstop, especially through the internet and through all of our devices. So we have just a short, tiny window to contact people and to catch their attention, because we're competing with so much other stuff right now. So making sure that you're right on point and that you're making that one tiny little contact count is so important. And then just be in it for the long haul. There's no such thing as overnight success. So just make sure that you're continually sticking with this consistency. It's sometimes a drudgery. It can be, I know, but it can also be a lot of fun, right? To think of new ways to get that brand out there, to get that messaging out there, and to make sure that it's consistent. And that's, and that's a game we can play with ourselves. How well can we do it, making this a consistent message across the board, and that people know who we are. So that's all about brand strategy, and brand strategy works. And I'm going to tell you, you may or may not like the food at McDonald's, but you got to admire their branding. They do a really excellent job with their branding. They have a fantastic brand guidelines book, which I've read, which is 140 something pages. They get down to the nitty gritty about how their logo is supposed to be used, how their messaging is supposed to be used, their clothing, their gift cards, their packaging, their, materials. They sell McDonald's products. People buy a hat with McDonald's logo on it just because, and an umbrella that looks like a bun. How did they do that? Because they created an image that people want to follow. People want to use that. Socks. They're buying socks with French fries on them. It's a brand that people like. And because they've done such a good job of sharing that brand consistently across the board. And then I want to show you a local example. Again, Zavia. This is one of my clients. Zavia Weight Loss and Med Spa. They have done a nice job also of continuing their branding consistently across the board here. The logo is a nice logo that portrays their image of this weight loss and med spa, a luxury experience. And we also created an icon for them here, with just the Z. So that's nice and useful for social media and for certain other marketing instances where we don't want to just use the name. And then the tagline. They have a very nice, simple tagline, 6 words. transforming your body, inspiring your mind. You know, gets right to the point of everything that they do. It doesn't tell the whole entire story, but it gets right to the meat of it about what they do there. And you'll see the imagery of their logo is used out in front of their storefront. And then we did some vinyl wraps on their windows. There's some on the back as well. That, you know, with those supporting graphics that I talked about that support that imagery and the tone and the message that we're trying to convey. And they even have like indoors. They have a carpet on the floor with the logo that people see as soon as they walk in the door. And then down here in the lower left, you'll see this is an example of a screen that we use as you walk into the store, into their clinic. There's a big screen TV, and this, you know, this is one of the images that you'll see walking in. And this is just kind of a grouping of all those graphic elements that are supporting of that logo. And then they've got some brochure and business cards that also support the brand, share the imagery, share the messaging in a clear, concise way. And this is just an example of what the Instagram profile page looks like. And some of you may be aware in Instagram, one of the things that they recommend to you to do is to set up your imagery so that when people are looking at your posts in a profile view like this, that it creates kind of a checkerboard image that is very consistent. So you'll see here that this imagery is, you know, they have images outlined in the palette colors, and then some images that are not outlined that are different styles. But when you look at it as a whole, it creates a nice pattern there. And this is something that people like. They like to see that because as soon as they come to your Instagram page, this is what they're going to see. And then they see a nicely laid out pattern there, and then they think, okay, these people have made some effort with their marketing. So that helps give you a good impression. And branding does have equity and ROI. Equity is earned. Brand equity is basically what you've earned over time and by doing a good job with your branding, marketing, and your brand consistency. Companies like Coca-Cola and IBM and Starbucks have thrived because they know how to present their brands, you know, to the right audiences at the right times, and they've earned that amazing brand equity. And there's also ROI, but you know, I will admit with branding and marketing, it's less cut and dried as sales calculations. You know, we don't have the hard numbers of, you know, okay, we, you know, made this your logo and you earned, you know, 100% extra funds because of it, revenue because of it. You know, we don't have those kinds of numbers because we're not selling a thing, a widget. But there has been a lot of studies done that have proved that there's a lot of return on investment for your brand equity. And the top brands are proof of that. You know, your Starbucks, your Coca-Cola, your IBM, McDonald's, they have done it and they've done it well. And there are brand metrics that you can look at, but I'm not going to go into all of those right now. So growth and change, brand identities can change. So don't feel like, oh, you know, I have this brand I have now, I have to stick with it. I can't make changes. I have so much invested in it. Yes, it's true you've invested in it. But again, remember, you want to refresh that. Like at least every few years, you want to refresh it. And especially refresh it if it's not fitting, if it's not working for you now. If you've narrowed your target market now, or you narrowed your business, or you've expanded, maybe you've grown into other areas, whatever it is, if your business changes, your identity should change with it and keep up with that and keep up with the current trends and stuff. You want your brands to be as timeless as possible, but you also want it to be timely. So here's an example of a company that has done a rebrand many, many times, Pepsi-Cola, starting in 1898 until today. Look at how many different versions of the logo that they had throughout the years. And you might notice something interesting is that each change followed the current trend. So they changed with the trends. Now that's not something we normally would recommend because you don't want to be too trendy because trends do change sometimes quickly and you don't want something that's not going to last for a while. But if you're a company like Pepsi who has a lot of brand equity and has really, you know, branded their product well, you can get away with it, right? They were able to change it and nobody went, oh, where's Pepsi? Who's that? That, you know, they know Pepsi. But, you know, until you're in that market, I would recommend not to get too trendy with your logos. You know, things like gradients or highlights or drop shadows and things like that, that are sometimes trendy are good to avoid. And what's current, and I think it's going to stick around for a long time, is what's called flat design. So you'll see that today's Pepsi logo is what's called flat design. So it just is a very simple, no dimension to it. There's no, gradients or drop shadows or anything to give it a three-dimensional quality. It's a flat 2D dimension, very simple, and as few colors as possible. And it's easily consumable. And like I said, in this day and age, we're all getting so much thrown at us that we really need something that's easy to discern quickly and that we can get the message from it as quick as possible. But when you do your brand refresh, which you show that sometime, just make sure not to lose track of your values, of your tone of voice or anything else that makes your brand unique, unless of course you're changing your business altogether. But in general, you want to stick to who you are. And last but not least, seek professional help. So at this point, you might feel a little crazy and need some help, but no, I mean, just people to help you with your brand. All the things that I've mentioned can span several different types of professionals. So you need someone that can do your brand, your branding, your marketing, and your design. Sometimes people can do all of those things, but at least get a professional to do all those things. It's really important to try to use professionals and not to try to DIY your brand. I mean, it's just too important. You've put a lot of work into what your business is, in developing that, your products, your services, and what you do. You need to put almost as much effort into your brand because it's going to be working for you 24/7. It's your silent ambassador, like Paul Rand said, working for you all the time. When you're asleep at night, your website, your marketing, your brand is going to be out there, sending that message for you. So make sure you do that well. Okay, so now time for questions. I've talked so much that my throat is dry. So anybody have questions?
I don't know if this is the spot to ask it, but how much do you tend to charge, and do you have kind of levels for clients? Like, say, how much did you charge Zivia versus how much would you charge me?
Well, I'm not really going to go into pricing here, but I will say that I have levels. So I have a, kind of a basic bare bones brand identity system level, and then something in between, and then a very comprehensive, all the bells and whistles kind of brand identity system package. And then I also do, other a la carte services. So the graphic design and the web design services. It just really depends on what you need. But I'd be happy to share that with you offline. But just to let you know, Zivia was one of my comprehensive brand identity clients. So they got all the bells and whistles. Any other questions?
Nobody else has a question?
That was a lot of information, I know.
I'm thinking about it. I'm flipping through my notes.
I actually have this is Evie, I actually have a comment.
Okay.
Some of this I thought I had all figured out until I saw your workshop.
Oh, well, okay. That's good. That's kind of what I'm going for, because I think, people often think they've already got this stuff set. And then when you look at it again, you realize, oh, maybe I need to do some work on that.
Well, I knew I had to do some work on it, but I don't know that I felt like, for instance, my brand or my, I think my main target audience is not two separate audiences. It's mainly the attorneys.
Okay.
And I also have picked what I thought was a brand, but it's actually a tagline, which is somewhere around the idea that is my experience is above expectation, which is less than 6 words.
Yes.
And the amount of experience I have as a nurse, which is more than 50 years, is what I believe is one of my main selling points for what I can offer.
Right.
The name of my company is a little bit difficult. It's something that I'm struggling with because certified legal nurse consulting is essentially, that's it. And my competitors, which are other certified legal nurse consultants,
Mhm.
have pretty much all been trained in the same venue. So I can't really offer that as anything different.
Okay.
I considered using my last name as part of the name of the company, but that is something that I'm not, I don't have it narrowed down. And I've been in business for a while without having, for a while meaning 4 years,
Okay.
without having a lot of this stuff narrowed down. And it's partially because the business is coming at me and I don't want to turn it down.
Right. Well, you
but
know
I-
what? You're not in a unique position, actually, Abby. I've seen a lot of businesses like this that have kind of started up out of a need. You know, someone needed their service and they found a niche, and so they jumped into it, but didn't do all the business setup background stuff and specifically the branding. It's never too late to do that, because like I said, even if you have an established brand, you can refresh it. So if you have none, all the better, really, because now you can sort of start from scratch as if you were a new company and get all that done and get yourself a brand. It's not too late. It's definitely
Yeah.
not.
And the logo too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the brand. All right.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a question? Because I want to stop the recording and then we can keep chatting, but okay. All right. Well, thank you, Pat.
Oh, I
Let's give
have a
her a
quick
round of applause. And then I will stop the recording. Everybody, round of applause. Yay. Okay.
Thank you.